No, I think no.
I know. What happened? Oh, okay.
It's like in the old movies.
No. Could be the kids had it set from yesterday. Could be something else.
Okay.
I'm trying to wake up. No?
Yeah, tradition, very nice.
The only reason he joined us is because he keeps on posting things on our chat.
At least I have to come
He
one
has to become part of it.
The legs are broken. It's on the second to the top line from 57. Hutzina dan Kure. There was a basket of birds with broken legs. Rashi brings another pshat over here that it could be that it's a black bird that has white spots in it. It's also called ankure. Now, the Asila Kami de Rava. It came in front of Rava, and Batki Rava Betzumas Agidin. Rava checked. You see, at the end of the polka, on the chicken, it's fat on the top. When it comes down, over there's 16 ligaments.
Tendons
that over there, if one of them is severed, so the animal is treifa. The bird is treifa. On an animal, I think there's only 2 or 3, but on a bird there's 16. So v'achshrei, and he said that it was kosher, but first he checked the Tzumas Agidin. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav. Now this is going to be important because we're going to have Rav Yehuda Marav, we're going to have Rav Huna Marav, we're going to have a statement from Rav himself, and it's all going to be contradictory. So we have to follow this. It says Shmutas Yad b'Behema Kshera. If the foreleg of the animal is dislodged, dislocated, that's kosher. That's by an animal, right? Shmutas yarech bebehema is treifa. Why this is parentheses is unclear. It seems that everyone has this gersa. If the thigh, that means the hind leg, is dislodged, so that's a treifa. Now, Taisus points out that shmuta, the term shmuta means that the tendons, not only is it dislodged, but the tendons are also disintegrated. There's an extra thing, because we had before, Buka Da'atma, the Shaf Miduchte, we made a difference between the Yakel Nive, this femur that's dislodged from the pelvis. So if the tendons are disintegrated, so that's treifa. So here we said that if the hind leg is dislodged, and the term shmuta is used, and that means also that the tendons are also disintegrated, that's a treifa. Shmutas yarach ba'if. Okay, this is the interesting one. Let's say it's dislodged by a bird. That's also treifa. Okay, and we'll see if that fits. Shmutas gaf ba'if. If the wing is dislodged, dislocated, then that's also treifa. Why? We think that maybe the lung was punctured. Several years ago, I did shchita with my students. So the main job was that they had was to pluck the feathers. So I gave them we had two or three birds. They plucked the feathers, and Rabbi Korf Senior was checking and was going to show us how to. One of the boys cut the wing off, so it would be easier to hold while he was plucking. It would be easier to hold the wing rather than the whole bird. So he cut the wing, and we had like these shears. They cut it off, and he was plucking off the wing. Rabbi Korf came back. He said, "No, I can't check the lung now. We don't have to check the lung. You don't have, but somehow he had a concern that when he would take everything out, he wouldn't be able to look properly, because once the wing was off, it could be it punctured the lungs, and he wouldn't know, was it punctured before or after. I'm not sure exactly. When I'm learning this Gemara, I wasn't sure exactly if he really had an issue.
The Mishnah says Nishtabru Gapeya, it's kosher.
That's Nishtabru. This is Shmuta, right? Broken or dislodged.
So it would be a
the difference is,
farmer.
no, because with the joint, what joins the lung, what joins the wing, is on the back. What joins it to the back that's exactly the location of where the lungs are.
Okay.
So when it gets pulled out, that could pull out and tear some of the tissue of the lung. So that's the chashash. Who says this, by the way? This statement was all Rav Yehuda Marav. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says tibadik. Shmuel says that you check it. And what are you checking here? You're checking the lung. How do you check the lung? Rashi says, you see, there's a problem over here. The lung on the bird is very, very very soft. If you try to pull it out, you'll probably tear it. So Rashi says what you do is you take a straw and you bring it over to the kana. You leave the lung inside, and you blow into the trachea of this bird with the straw, but you leave. See, the lung is stuck in between the ribs of the bird. It's on the back. It's possible that you just see the ribs. You won't even see the lung. It's very, very thin, and just on the back. It doesn't. I don't think it really inflates a lot. You blow it in. You see if the air is coming out. If the air is coming out, then it's a problem. Otherwise, it's fine. So Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan say that you can check it. Okay. Chizkiah Amar Ein Rei Eloif. Chizkiah says,
Is it a Meir, Chizkiah?
was he one of the sons of Rabbi? I think he was on this chart. Let's see. Rabbi has a son, Chizkiah. So he's right here. He's right on the top. By Rabbi Yochanan and Shmuel's generation. He says, Ein Rei Eloif. A bird doesn't have a lung. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Yesh Lai. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, it does. And V'yeshna Ka'ala Shel Vered. And it has it, it's like a petal of a rose. That means in texture and in color. It's a very, very thin, and it's rose.
Very delicate.
It's red. Bein Agapayim, and it's between the shoulders. Okay. Mayin Rei Eloif, what does it mean that it doesn't have a lung? Eily Medeles Lakla, we're asking on Chizkiah now. Do we say that it doesn't have a lung at all? A bird doesn't have a lung? Bakachazina Dislay. When you look at it, you open up, you see that there is a lung there. Eladalei Mitraf Bey means that there's no halachas of a lung. All the halachas that we said in the Mishnah, a lung that has, it's 2 blisters, if it has a sircha, this, birds don't have those halachas. Really? Vahatani Levi. We had a statement from Levi. Levi, we said, was Rabbi Shua ben Levi's father was a student of Rabbi.
Is it Tana or?
That's a good question. He's right there at the border. Here we have him. He's going to be over here. They put him in the generation of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. They put him right there on that line. He's on the Tanaim chart. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is considered an Amira, even though he's in the Bais in Pirkei Avos, but that's a Braisa, and the Braisa was edited after the Mishnayos. So, but Tani Levi taught that treifas shemanu chachamim bebehema connectan ba'oif, that the treifas that the sages enumerated by animal, they correspond to the bird. Yeser aleim oif, and they even have more. But there's an extra one by a bird of nishbar etzem afal pishlei nikav kum shel mayach. We said that if the skull was broken, even if the membrane wasn't punctured, it was still treif. We said that was by a water bird, a bird of aquatic fowl. So that's an extra thing. But it definitely has the ones that an animal has. Levi says so, and no, we don't see that anyone argues on this. So that would mean that it does have the halachas of treif of a bird. Ella, rather, ein loy linpol v'loy lechamer. It doesn't have 2 aspects. The 2 aspects are that if it fell off a roof, you don't have to examine it. You don't have to examine the lung. Why? Because the lung is protected by the ribs, by the bird. I think that somehow the ribs have a narrower part. They have like a flat part and a narrower part. So that protrudes, and it's the lung is stuck in between the narrow part that protrudes. So it's really held in there like in a case. So it doesn't get hurt if it falls. And also, if it falls into a fire, also you don't have to check it. If we said that you have to look at the insides to see if it turned colors, you don't have to check the lungs. This is by a bird. My timer. What's the reason? Amar Rav Chana. Rav Chana says, Hayel v'reiv tzaliseh magine saleh, because it says majority of the space between the ribs is protecting it. Okay. We're going to have a little bit of a problem here because we're going to see differences between birds and possible differences between an animal and a bird. And no one argues on Levi. And that's a problem because Levi told us that the same halachas of an animal treifa, the same applies to a bird. So the way to answer this is that if you look carefully at the words, treifas shemanu chachamim bebehema. What's shemanu? Shemanu means that we're listed in the first Mishnah of Eily treifas. We've had other lists of different treifas. Bukadatma, the Shaf Miduchte, we had those things. But that's not in the Mishnah. That was the Shav Shemaitza. Those was the other halachas. But here, why did we quote Levi? We quoted him because we said, what about the halachas of Nikva Hareya? Hareya shenikva shechasra. That's in the Mishnah. We said, okay, actually it does have that halacha of Hareya shenikva. It just doesn't have the other halachas of it falling into fire or falling off a roof. That, we don't have to check it. Okay. It was falling off a roof in the Mishnah. Naflam and Agag, that was in the Mishnah. So it must mean Naflam and Agag is takatreif. But that one example of something that I need to be baidik, that I don't need to be baidik dereya by Naflam and Agag. Okay.
That was not in the Mishnah.
Falling off the roof? No, in the very first Mishnah of Eily treifas, going back to Daf Memala.
Oh.
Going back to Daf Mem Bais. 42. That was the original Mishnah. Everything that was in that original Mishnah, according to Levi, has to apply to the bird. The Gemara now says, "V'amidam Rabbi Yochanan yeshloi v'yeshna kala shel vered ben agapayim." We said that Chizkiah is going to agree to Rabbi Yochanan that there is a lung. The only thing is, it doesn't have a certain halacha. And he said, "There's no lung." He meant a certain halacha doesn't apply. But the problem is that Rabbi Yochanan, that was in conversation with him, probably understood what he said, and the way he responded to him makes it look like Chizkiah meant that there's no lung, because he responds to him, this is what it looks like. He didn't say, oh yes, you do have to examine it if it falls off the roof. He actually described its color and its texture. That means Rabbi Yochanan held from the conversation that Chizkiah held that there was no lung. He says, from the fact that it says, Yeshna ka'ala shel vered ben agapayim, that it's like a rose petal between the shoulders. It must mean that Chizkiah holds that there's no lung. Rather, in Eretz Yisrael, they said in the name of Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, B'dvarav shel Baribi, from the words of the Great One. Here we're referring to Chizkiah. Nikar she'eina baki b'tana golim. It's obvious that he was not an expert in chickens, in birds. He wasn't a connoisseur. What does that mean? He didn't.
Very rough.
He didn't eat them often, or
It's cheap food, maybe.
I don't think he was wealthy, because we had a Gemara before about the liver, where we said, oh, very nice. Where we said the B'nai Reb Chia did not eat the liver, and Reb Shimon and Rebbe's children ate the liver, and we said that the rich people are cheap. Remember? So in Chizkiah, so it must be Chizkiah wasn't wealthy. So maybe this was a delicacy. Today it's not. Today chicken is not a delicacy. That's from the cheaper foods. But whatever it was, Chizkiah wasn't expert in.
When they say oif, normally we're talking about chicken.
I don't know. But here he says, Sheina Baki B'Tarna Gailan. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure they had more birds than
I'm
we
saying
have.
before
They
that,
were
when they
eating
say oif.
everything that flew.
When it says my ein rei la'oif, so about chicken or just any type of bird?
Oif.
That's interesting, because it doesn't conclude with that. It's interesting. It's like inconsistent. It says any bird. Chizkiah's statement was with any bird. He says he's only not familiar with chickens.
Maybe a duck or a fowl.
Okay, unless we're gonna say that that was the most common bird that they ate, and that's what it means. That would make sense. Okay, we're back to another statement from Rav. So far we had Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav. If you look at the chart, I have Rav up here, and I have Rav Yehuda here. That his statement was that if the polka of the chicken is dislodged, it's a treifa. Okay? Now we're going to learn from Rav Huna in the name of Rav. Rav Huna is the student that took over Rav after Rav passed away. Rav Yehuda, after Rav passed away, he went to Shmuel. That's why they moved him over a drop. But Rav Huna was the main student. Yeah. So now we say, Amar Rav Huna Marav, Shmutas Yerach Ba'if Ksheira. It's exactly the opposite. Here we say if the polka is dislodged, it's kosher. Amalei Rabba bar Rav Huna l'Rav Huna. So Rabba bar Rav Huna tells to Rav Huna, I guess it's his son. V'harabanan da'asimi Pumpadisa. The rabbis that came from Pumpadisa, Amru, they said, Rav Yehuda Mishmei de Rav Amar, Shmutas Yerach Ba'if Treifa. That if it's dislodged, it's a treifa. Amalei Bri, he says, my son, Rabba bar Rav Huna, it's Rav Huna's son, Nara Naru Pashte. That the river goes through different places, and each place it looks different. In one place the river's flowing swiftly, another place it's slowing down, meander, it's going around in semicircles, it's going around. And you could think that maybe it's different rivers, but really it's all the same river, but each one it looks different. So therefore, this is a general rule, that you can have a paisik in one place that paskins like this, and it's in another city they have to go like that, because for whatever reason that was the halacha, and that the way that rabbi understood it. That's
He says it's very nice over here.
how does he say?
He says that he went to Pumbedita, and over there the city already accepted the schum around themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't paskin anything, kept quiet.
Uh-huh.
So therefore the rabbis in town assumed, since he kept quiet, that he agrees with it, but in fact he just didn't want to disrespect whoever else or the customs that were there.
Disrupt the status quo.
Yeah.
Right.
And Rabbi Yehuda came from Medisa.
So Rabbi Yehuda,
So that's lo shamati in arayah.
right? If he doesn't say anything, well, that's an interesting thing with Shasik Rav. Usually Shasik is Chikayda, but not by Rav.
Dummy.
But by Rav, it wasn't like that. Shasik Rav, there was an expression in the Gemara that Rav didn't even bother to comment. But here, that's not what we're meaning to say. Over here, we're saying he didn't comment because he held that that's how they should continue. Okay, so on that chart, Rav Yehuda, after Rav passes away, Rav Yehuda goes to study by Shmuel. After Shmuel passes away, so Rav Yehuda, and actually there was a problem in Nardoi because it was Nardoi was attacked by some general or something came in and attacked Nardoi, so they started a yeshiva in Pumbedisa. So Rabbi Yehuda is the founder of the yeshiva in Pumbedisa. So that's where we have this statement of what the custom of Pumbedisa and Rav not responding to their custom was because Nara Naru Pashti. Also Rabbi Abba went. Ashkachele Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, the Kabadik B'Tzuma Sagidin. So he sees Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba checking the Tzumas Agidin. Now, if you're checking the Tzumas Agidin, that means that
You do believe in six.
A Shmutas Yarech is a problem, which was the opinion of Rav and Pumpadisa, not the opinion of Rav Huna. So Amalei, he says to him, Lamalei Lamar Kulei Hai. What are you working so hard? You're checking the Tzumas Agidin.
Is
You
this
have to
the father
count.
talking to his son?
I don't know.
Two different guys.
I don't think so,
Doesn't sound like it.
because it doesn't say Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Rav Abba. I don't know if the Rav Abba is the Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba's Abba. So it says, Rav Huna Amarav Shmutas Yarech Ba'if Ksheira. Why are you checking the Tzumas Agidin? You don't need to. It's kosher. Amaleya Namas Nisi Yadana. He says, look, I know the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Behema Shenechtaku Raglea Min Arkuva Lamata. If an animal has its legs cut from the arkuva, which arkuva is two possible places. Either it's the upper joint or it's the lower leg. It's ksheira. Min arkuva lamaila, but if it's cut above the arkuva, so then it's psula. V'chein shenital tzumas agidin, the same as if the sinews, the tendons there, the sinews there are. One second. Are if they're taken out, so that's also trait. And V'amar Rav Allah v'chein ba'if. And Rav comments on that. The same is true with the bird.
V'chein shenito tzomis agidim is a Mishnah?
Yeah. Where's this Mishnah? In Bais, he says.
I'm Rav.
The Mishnah is on Ayin Vav.
Yeah, Rav.
Well, Masnisa could be a Brisa, but here it says it's a Mishnah. Okay, so we have a statement here from Rav that says the same thing applies to a bird. So Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba is right, he needs to check it. Tosfos is dealing with a difficult issue here of why do we need the Amar Rav. We already have Levi. Levi says that whenever anything that has to do with any treifa by an animal applies to the bird. What's the teretz? Because that's not in the first Mishnah. Levi is only treifa shemanu chachama bebehema. That's the teretz to Tosfos. Tosfos doesn't answer that.
Rabbi, all these things we're learning, and shrit and all that, these are all chukim, not
It's all
mishpatim.
halach l'meishem misinai.
And they're under chukim, because
Right.
we don't really understand why this is okay and that's not okay.
Right. Even though we can come up with reasons.
That's what I was wondering. Sometimes we seem to have an explanation.
We come up with reasons for details or for general reasons, but then we lose details or we lose the general. So there's always going to be things in here that are going to be halach l'meishem misinai or achaik. Even if we have a reason, it's much more humane or it's healthier or
Just
all of these
makes
things.
it plausible, but it doesn't
Right.
really mean that's the reason.
The Gemara says, okay, now we have a problem. You just said that the Rav says that the same applies to a bird, that there's a problem with Tzumas Agidin. But Rav's real opinion was the opinion of Rav Huna, that says that Shmutas Hayerech is kosher. If the polka is taken out, it's kosher. And here Rav says the same thing applies to a bird, Tzumas Agidin, so it's a contradiction. Kasha de Rav de Rav. It's a question on Rav. Says Ishtik.
So Amar Vida Amar Rav says that Shmutas Yerech Ba'oif Treifa.
That's a problem. Go a little further, halfway down the page. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav, Shmutas Yerech Ba'oif is Ksheira. So that was a Machlekes Rav's opinion. We said that Rav Yehuda, we answered Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba's answer, was that Nara Naru Pashte. Why did Rav Yehuda think that Rav said that? Because Rav was there in Pumpadisa, and he didn't comment on what the people of Pumpadisa did, because that was their opinion before Rav came. So he didn't want to rock the boat. So
But here it's a much.
now we have
stronger
Rav
question.
saying that it's treif, and we thought that Rav's original opinion is the opinion of Rav Huna, which says that it's kosher. So now it's a contradiction in Rav. Amarle, he says, Dilma shani le ben shmuta lechatucha. Where did Rav say that it's kosher if it's dislodged? We didn't talk about if it's cut. If it's dislodged, it's kosher. If it's cut, that's a problem. Amalei vat mefarshas shmaitza derav. You came up with a teretz to explain Rav, but actually befeirish amar Rav shmuta ksher chatucha psula. Actually, Rav said this clearly. There's no contradiction. Rav Huna says that it's kosher in the name of Rav. Yeah, that's a good question.
Should have told him right away. Beferish amar Rav shmuta ksher chatucha psula.
Right. Right, that's a good question. Did they comment on that? Anything on the... Rabbi Scroll. Hart is the first name. Okay, I don't know. It makes it more dramatic, but I don't know that. So, Rav says clearly.
Oh, he says over here, Rav Yirmiyah did not seem the question worthy of a response.
Oh, wow. So that's like...
But then when he kept prodding
that's
him...
like a Shasik Rav.
But when he kept prodding him, he answered him.
And he says, and don't be surprised that Chatucha is Psula and Shemuta is Kshera. Because if it's dislodged, even though it's higher up dislodged, and it's kosher, but that's not a problem because sometimes you can cut it higher and it's kosher, and you cut it lower and it's treif, even though it's further away from the main part of the body. But nevertheless, that could make a bigger treifa than when it's cut closer in. Kisalak Rababa, Ashkechela Rab Zera Diyaseh v'Ka'amar. Rababa went to Eretz Yisrael. Rab Zera is over here under Rabavo, and here's Rababa. So Rab Zera learned by Rabbah. He learned together with Rabbah, and Rav Yehuda held that you weren't allowed to leave Bavel, just like there's Zionists that would say that you can't leave Israel. He was a Babylonianist that held that you weren't allowed to leave Bavel. Rav Yehuda. So he had to avoid when he left. He had to avoid Rav Yehuda. He didn't want him to tell him you can't go. Rab Zera went to Eretz Yisrael, and after he went, afterwards Rab Abba comes to Eretz Yisrael, and Rab Zera is there teaching. And he comes in, and he says, Rab Zera is sitting, Rav Huna says in the name of Rav that it's treif. It's very different than what we learned. But this is what Rab Zera is saying. This is what Rab Zera is saying in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, exactly the opposite of the way we have it. Amalei Chayedamar, he says, by your life, from the day that the master moved here, so referring to Rab Zera, we were able to have a conversation with Rav Huna. We asked him. He told us exactly the opposite. He said that if the polka is dislodged, it's kosher. We saw Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba was checking the Tzumas HaGidin. Actually, we asked him, don't you hold that it's kosher? You don't have to go through all of this ordeal to examine it? And he responded that he knows a Mishnah. The animal that's cut on the thigh or on the lower bone, or if the sinews are taken out, and Rav says the same applies to a bird. And we said to him, if that's the case, then we have a contradiction. Rav says that there's no problem with the bird, with the thigh being dislodged, and here you're saying that there's a problem with the sinews. Ishtik, and he was quiet. And we asked him, maybe there's a difference between if it's dislodged or if it's cut. Exactly the Gemara that we had before. He says, you are explaining the words of Rav from your own understanding. Actually, beferish amar Rav. Rav said it clearly. So we have all of this background. We have Rav Huna's statement. We have Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba explaining that Rav says that it's kosher if it's dislodged. And Shmuta is kosher. It's only if it's cut that it's puzzle. Vad ma biyadach? What do you have to say? How are you going to explain how you're stating in the name of Rav Huna Amarav exactly the opposite of what we have confirmed? So he says, Hachi Amarav, Chia Barashi Amarav. He says, I didn't hear it from Rav Huna Amarav directly. I heard it from Chia Barashi in the name of Rav, that Shmutas Yerach Baif is Treifa. Okay. He has another source. That if it's dislodged, it's treif. V'chein amar Rav Yaakov Baridi amar Rav Yochanan Shmutas Yerach Baif Treifa. See, it's interesting. We're going through this as if it's very abstract, but the truth is that when you get a chicken and you see there's some sort of discoloration or a broken bone on the polka, so years ago that was a real shaila. And you would have to take it to the Rav, to the Sheikhet, and the Sheikhet would have to be able to tell, did it break in the Shlachtais, or was it broken before? And he would look at the color of it.
The bruising.
You could tell from the bruise when it was. And sometimes he would say, oh, this is not a problem. Sometimes he would say, this is definitely a problem. Sometimes he would say, it's a suffix. It's hard to tell. But today, it's so commercialized that we have nowhere to go. What are you going to do? You see a broken tie, you just put it in the thing. But that wasn't the way it was. So it's a real shaila. It's just for whatever reason we ignore it because we're assuming that everything was examined properly. Okay, so we have from Reb Chia Barashi in the name of Rav, V'chein Amar Rab Yaakov Baridi Amar Rab Yochanan. Rab Yochanan also says Shmutas Yerach Baif Treifa, that if it's dislodged, it's Treifa. From Rab Yaakov Baridi, Rab Yaakov Baridi says in Mali Hava Rab Yochanan Ba'asra Da Eiraba Chaversel Teira Like Parches. If Rab Yochanan would have been in a place where everyone else there would say that it's kosher, he wouldn't flutter. This is a very funny expression because we're talking about like birds. He uses an expression of bird. Rabbi Yochanan wouldn't flutter. He wouldn't twitched. He wouldn't twitch. But the Aramaic is the expression that we use for an animal to see if it was a good. It's to me, in reading it, it sounds like a pun. Okay, Damar Rab Chanina Amar Rebbe. Rab Chanina says in the name of Rebbe, Shmutas Yerach Baif Ksheira, that if there's a dislodged thigh, it's kosher. B'Tanagal says Rabbi Chanina, there was a bird that Rabbi Chanina had, Shnishpta Yerach Shala, Ve'vil Ifnei Rabbi Ve'tiralai, and he brought it